fair the rain was.
It's supposed to be nice.
Calendar had two
Now, I want you to know
Junes.
we have new cameras today, right?
It looks like,
We have new cameras that are like high definition.
uh-oh.
So I asked for a fuzzy
Makeup.
filter, but they won't give me one. So anyway,
Gotta comb my hair.
yeah, I know. It's
Yeah, I know what you mean,
Both of
Mark.
them.
high definition. They're going to practice on us today. So
Fantastic.
anyway, but they'll be able to Zoom, right? I mean, there's all kinds of new things we can do with it now. You can zoom in on the person that,
They don't do that on TV anymore, do they?
I don't know, like that.
yeah, I know, but still. So,
Okay, let's come to order. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock. This is the Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee meeting. It is Monday, July 30th, 2018. And let's
Mark
stand for
Wessels?
the approval of
do
the
roll call.
roll call. All right, go for it.
Mark Wessels.
Here.
Ed Fisher. Judy Wagner. Ray Frankenberg. Bob Ingeman.
Here?
Bill Stratman.
Here.
Mayor Lucy.
Yes?
Joe Hopmeyer.
Here.
Danny Cassette. LB Eckelkamp. Bill Miller.
Here.
Tim Brinker.
Here.
Steve Sonnentrop. John Nilges.
Here.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. It would have been a good morning to sleep in.
Yeah.
First item on the agenda always is, first we want to recognize Ray Frankenberg's father, who passed away, Ray Frankenberg Sr. I think of him as a person who was very much in the leadership role, economic development. His firm was active in making connections with the outside world, with, I guess, Walmart probably was the big one. And I think the services for him are going to be held tomorrow at Elks Club in the afternoon.
48.
So just let's all remember him for a moment. Thank you all. First item is the approval of the minutes from June 25th. Do I have any? Gene, I have one minor change. Chad Egan's name is spelled E-G-G-E-N, not E-A-G-A-N like we spell it around here.
It
It's
doesn't
E-G-G-E-N.
have an S on the end or not?
I don't think so.
Got that, Gina? Got it? Okay.
All right, that's the only change that I see.
Okay.
Any other changes, corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Amtrak,
Yes, there was a MOPAC meeting last week. I was not able to attend, I was out of town, but I talked to Eric, railroad manager, and he just gave me a few of the major points that they covered. We are getting closer to our new coaches on the train, still a ways off. Talking actually next year. They are in construction right now, though. If you remember, they did that, and there was a failure, and so they had to start over. They're expecting first delivery next summer, okay? The shunting issue, the idea of the extra cars on there to trigger the guards. Well, there's a new Federal Railroad Administrator who's just been appointed, named Lattori, and he is becoming, that's kind of one of his babies. He's personally involved in this whole shunt. He's going to get that thing solved, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, we'll continue running the extra cars to make sure that guard comes down. Amtrak at the meeting apparently had high praise from Missouri, one of the few places where they're willing to raise fares and not affect ridership. In other words, when we've done it here in Missouri, we usually do like $1 a ticket. And so it's very, very low rate, and it has not affected our ridership at all. In fact, our ridership does keep climbing. So Amtrak was, apparently a lot of the states aren't willing to do that. So we had on the river run, one once again, we were one of the highest in the nation in terms of customer satisfaction. The state has approved the contract for the coming year at $9.1 million. That's where it's been the last several years. Our contract with Amtrak is around $10 million, which is usually the case also. And so we continue, I've talked to you about that arrears situation. We continue that, and we keep trying to make that up. But it seems like we're always playing a little bit of catch up. But the 9.1 million, people were basically pleased with. We don't have yet, because Eric is short-staffed, he was not able to do himself, so we don't have our ridership figures yet that I usually give you for Washington. He said he will get those to us sometime. That's all I have.
Very good. Any comments, questions? Mark? Hearing none. Thank you, Mark. Okay, the Highway 47 Missouri River Bridge.
I got an email from Judy saying she wouldn't be here, but they're working on the decking.
Yeah, I got the same one, and Judy indicated it's kind of interesting that when they start pouring, they're going to start pouring on the Warren County end, and due to the term deflection and loading, large sections will be skipped and poured later. There's a sequence to the deck pours, so the bridge is allowed to deflect as it is loaded. Something we forget. Engineering.
That's kind of interesting.
Engineers.
I
think
read
it
that
is,
too. I thought, now that's interesting. Engineers know that stuff. That's like, wow, that's interesting.
And how much will it deflect, which means how much will it? A foot. That's just unbelievably hard to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff.
How much space between the pours?
They'll each be several hundred feet long. So they'll pour the
Yeah.
Come on.
This is your expertise here.
what she means by that, it's a pouring plan, basically. So you pour it in a manner that you're not loading new concrete, right? So if you load new concrete, it cracks easy. So you got positive moment areas and negative moment areas. When you load the center of the span, it deflects down and it puts tension in the bottom of the girders. Well, when you do that, over top of the piers, it puts tension over the top. Well, if you put new concrete in those areas, it would cause cracking in those areas as it settles. So you pour the positive moment areas first, so you get that full deflection. Then you come back and pour the negative moment areas. That's the reason for it.
So what is it, the positive what areas?
Moment?
Moment.
Yes.
Oh, that's a fun phrase. We'll have to learn that one. The positive moment area and the.
Engineering
negative-
class 101. Yeah.
Negative moment
The
area.
region's full of positive moments.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The positive
like
moment
this.
and the negative?
There's negative moments, yeah.
Ah,
It's, yeah.
okay. This is a positive moment. Okay.
Anyway, thanks for explaining that.
They'll jump around. It'll look like a patchwork for a while. They'll hit several areas and they'll come back and then hit the areas in between the areas they just poured. So
And they'll have to do that, I guess, from the old bridge on a lot of them, so they're not going over those ones they poured? Or?
I don't know if they'll be pumping off the old bridge or not.
I think there was a plan to do that in some locations, but I mean.
Once they get an area poured, they should be able. They'll let it set to the point where they can drive equipment
Drive
out
over
on it
top.
and then hit it. Yeah.
I would anticipate some of that, though, maybe, you know.
Ah, ah.
Jeez.
We have a new phrase.
Which
It's-
initials in there?
So will they farm the whole thing first and then start pouring? I mean, put all the,
All the rebar.
Well, it looks like they're getting most of the deck panels. They'll get the steel deck panel. They're putting these temporary corrugated deck panels all the way across. That keeps the concrete in place above the girders. They'll get those. They're working from the north side all the way to the south, so they get all those in. The concrete is the only thing that they'll limit what they're pouring at one time.
I would also add, I drove over, I went to Augusta yesterday, and they have some of the rails up
Yes.
on the Warren County
I saw
side.
that
So
too.
just get a
Those
good
look
feel for what it
nice.
looks like, yeah.
The color is good.
Yeah.
We debated that.
It kind of matches the rest of the city and what you've done with railings around town.
Yeah, it looks-
Looks good. Looks good.
Kevin, it's projected for 100 years that the bridge should last? Is that-
Oh, it should last longer than that. That's 100 years before you got to do any kind of major rehab work to it. The deck typically will last 30 to 40 years, depending on how that goes. So there'll be some deck work before then. But even with this Core 10 steel, you're not worrying about repainting. You're not worrying about a lot of that stuff. So Yeah, should have 100-year design life in there.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions?
I get less questions about it, so it must be going fine.
Yes.
They've pretty much done everything they're going to do at least once, so that,
I got a question for you with regard to this causeway thing that I'm working on. What did how much did the end of the bridge raise the flood level? Or
it didn't raise flood level at all. For the roadway is controlling the flood elevation on
Right.
47, it's not the bridge.
So
We are about 4 or 5 feet higher than the old end of the bridge, and that was basically just to get the trail elevation, because our trail wraps around, comes back underneath the bridge, and we had to have a 10-foot clearance there, so we're raised up a little bit there to make that vertical
That's what I
clearance
was-
over our
that's what I
trail
was asking.
elevation.
The end of the bridge where the flooding occurred, Augusta Bottom Road basically is the same.
Yeah, it is still occurring about
Elevation.
that same location.
Yeah, so
Yep.
basically it's the same.
Yep.
Yep.
Just a little side, I've noticed PBS the other day ran a thing on the 10 greatest engineering achievements in the country's history. And one of them was the East Bridge, and saying how they expect that to last as long as the pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Very good.
First use of alloy steel.
Yes. Steel like
Very good. 1854, something like that. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to add that we're thinking that the ribbon cutting will be December 1st. And they still say that that's weather permitting, but what that means is if we'd have 2 weeks of weather that they couldn't work, that would be weather permitting, but I think they're working evenings and they're working quite a bit. So we have another meeting this week to talk about that.
I think it's important to realize that doesn't necessarily mean the bridge is going to be completed on that day.
No.
Open the traffic on that day.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're talking like maybe the trail won't be all the way. So, I mean, the lighting won't be there and stuff, but it will be open to traffic.
Next item, Highway 47 Corridor Committee. John?
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Last Thursday, we had a meeting, the committee met with Lockmuir Group to discuss essentially their findings. The majority of that discussion, and there was I want to say maybe a 20-minute presentation, PowerPoint presentation. Commissioner Brinker and myself were in attendance.
And Mr. Chairman was there, too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize, Bill. Sorry about that. We went through, and essentially the focus of the actual meeting was the union section to try to get 47, kind of the bottleneck in that area. And I believe they looked at 6 or 7 different options, and there was a scoring mechanism that went through, traffic-related, safety-related. Dollars were also incorporated in that, and there was just a scoring matrix that they put together and narrowed down to 3 different options. Right now, those options are planning to be presented to the public. I believe middle of September was what we decided was the best time to have that meeting. So I would just say everybody kind of keep their ears open for that meeting. I think it was determined that it would be kind of an open house type discussion. So the public, different stakeholders can come to that meeting and just ask various questions. But it was very informative. That was kind of the bulk of the presentation. I would also add that towards the end, there was some smaller, more intermediate type projects that would have affect, more Washington area. One would be Riverstone Quarry, where the trucks come out, would be a location and then where the formal J&W cycles, there's some entrance issues there that cause safety issues. And of that, Judy indicated that she was very happy with that, because she could take some of those projects then that were identified in this discussion and try to get some dollars to get some of those things done. It may not be that the 4 lanes happens right away, but maybe we can get some of these, I like to use the term low-hanging fruit items pretty quickly that could assist on some safety issues. So I felt it was very informative. I don't know if anyone else has that same opinion, but Judy was I'm not trying to speak forward, but was very happy with taking some of those smaller projects to try to move them forward as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think Lockmiller went one step further, too. They included the environmental.
Correct.
Looked at the environmental
Didn't think about that.
on these projects, because that can change. In fact, one of them that was kind of the one fail, whatever,
Yeah, there was an option.
Fatal
I think it was one of the top three options, actually, and they called it a fatal flaw, but it was utilized some, I forget the term. It was dollars. It's right next to where the Dickey Bubs is, where the soccer fields are. Those are all constructed with dollars from the state for recreation, and you got to go through that. It takes an act of the General Assembly to change it to a different, to change it to a different use. So that was considered a fatal flaw because obviously that would take quite a bit of effort to get that done. So they did. They went through the environmental, and it was very high level. I don't want to think that it was these trees are identified as bad trees and those type of things. But they did run it by their group to kind of put that into the scoring matrix, which I think was very helpful.
I thought it was very helpful. That sometimes is the key, environmental. Now, it probably, as studies go, this is probably as good a study for a roadway or that I've seen, not that I'm the expert on it, but I've been involved in a couple of them before, and this one was very well done. I mean, and it was appreciated by the county. County sees its merit, and by breaking it up and actually identifying some possible solutions that could be done, as John was saying, Judy really liked the ideas of being able to now grab some of these things and start getting them done and putting them in the mix, so that you don't throw a $50 million one-time build 4 lanes. In fact, there was a number of times she talked about different methods of different lanes where you'd have 2 lanes, 3 lanes, bump outs or blisters or whatever they call them, so that they could keep the traffic moving, and then also getting the traffic to identify one entrance where we've got too many entrances on Highway 47, and taking entrances and building side streets to one place and then enter them. Even to the point of they talked about going over the top of one of them.
Yeah, there was one location.
One location going over the top even. So I mean, this is very well done, and I'm anxious to see the final report. And I think the newspaper did a great job of explaining what was in that meeting and what was talked about. So.
And I think one of the most important parts was these smaller projects to alleviate some things play into the overall 4-lane project, to where you're not putting money up front now and then having to tear it out and replace it later when you go to this 4-lane. It just kind of, progressively moved towards that, the 4-lane concept. So it was, like I said, it was well done, and I felt like there was some very usable projects in the short term that we could get going pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, it'll come a long way in establishing where the proximity will be for crossing the Burbus River. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, in the big plus sign of the proposal. And I agree, Bill, the fact that Lockmiller is really proving their worth in their results of the product. Things that I know Judy didn't anticipate seeing and being able to implement right away are going to be very helpful. This phase alone, we'll be able to plug things in and help in the big picture. Like you said, those side streets / quasi-service roads to consolidate entrances and minimize entrances to the main thoroughfare will be an absolute help in terms of safety improvement right out of the gate. But again, it's going to boil down to, if you want to go to the west side of that Dickey Bub development or the east side of that development, or existing side, if you will, existing roadway. And that's going to impact those folks too, and how things are going to be routed and utilization from a development perspective is going to be impactful no matter what.
And I think they took that into account. What's the future
Absolutely.
impact for economic development, where these new roads would go?
And I love that they look.
That's great. That's super that they're thinking ahead towards it, not just identifying it and making it easy. I mean, this thing with 47 is very important, I think, to get some more monies available in the future. I mean, this all started back in August of '94. There was a study done showing the impact of the flood, and then that impact went to the Route 47 MTIA, which was started in '98 and finally got finished in 2002. So stuff is long-term stuff. And in fact, the major transportation investment analysis, quite honestly, took in the northern part, which is where the causeway is, and something, or will be, hopefully. And right at the end of the, and Eric, you probably know this, but right at the end of where MoDOT was identifying the STIP for the coming 5 years, State Improvement Transportation Plan, the last two items that got presented was two of them. One of them was Highway 47, scoping and pavement improvements 0.1 miles south of streets M and MM in Warrenton. Very important, that's where the trouble is. And then the last but not least, scoping for roadway improvements due to flooding issues from DeSoto, Washington. That just was, that's in the 5-year step.
Well, that's in our scoping section
Yes,
of the, so we can spend some dollars to take a look at the flooding issues that are currently on 47. So there's about 4 spots
there is 4 spots, even so.
down that
that's-
section, so we can start taking a look at how to address those issues.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that you guys got that in there. I don't know how you did it, but you did it, and that's great. So, anyway. So both ends are being worked on, north and south, 44 to 70. It's probably the first time we can say that. And that's gonna become a major corridor as it's built up, quite honestly. I think it's gonna become a huge economic development tool, and freight and whatever is gonna come down Highway 47. Anyway, anything else on 47 Corridor Committee, Transportation Committee?
Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the last meeting, but I did have a discussion with Ron's office over at Franklin County this morning. The agenda items that everyone's most interested in is the grant projects. And the city did put in, I believe, a $50,000 request to offset some of the cost on our sidewalk from Teeman Drive to Catawba Place, just to extend our sidewalk infrastructure through town. I think all the projects were discussed. Nothing was voted on at the time. Typically, that does not happen until the final audit comes in, where we see how many dollars are available. So if you have any other questions, I can try to answer them.
John, has there been any more talk about the proposed additional funding if the tax issue passes, coming up in the tax issue for 10 cents at the level on gas tax, gallons of gas and diesel fuel?
Well, I was not in attendance in the meeting, and I've not seen the minutes yet, so I don't know if there was any discussion. I would say that, I don't know if Brinker was or not, but
Well, this
I don't know if there was any other discussion
This
about
may be a
that.
good point to bring it in. Sandy asked me to go to, there was a meeting on this, the proposal to have a gasoline tax increase. I went to Kansas City. Basically, I found out it was mostly the Kansas City executives, businessmen, union people, all talking about, mainly they wanted to get together on Proposition A, and both appeared to be that the unions and the non-union people are all working together on this proposal, which is great. They look at it as a win-win for everybody, no matter which way it goes. It's going to be a win-win. If it passes, doesn't pass, nobody loses out of this. So anyway, that's what I got out of it. But at the same time, they kind of, there's going to be a campaign to promote this. And I'll give you the specifics. It's going to be on the November ballot. It will be for a 10-cent per gallon increase on both gasoline and diesel. It will be phased in over 4 years at 2.5 cents per year, starting, when does it start? July of 2019. The first 2.5 cents will go in, will become, if it's passed. And then once the full 10 cents is implemented in 4 years, the monies are going to be divided between the state, the counties, and the cities. So I mean, they're gonna start dividing it basically right away, I assume. But we're talking about some big, big bucks here. This 10 cent, in 4 years, when it says fully 10 cents, is gonna be over 400 and some $1 million a year coming into the state for transportation needs. Of that, 70% is gonna stay with the state, 15% is gonna come back to the cities, and 15 is gonna come back to the counties. So 30% of the 100 is gonna come back to the cities and counties. And it breaks it down based on, population is how the, cities are gonna be identified, and counties have got a different formula. It's a little bit different, but it basically is money coming back that was not thought of, and not additional source of money, quite honestly. And when you're talking about 10 cents a gallon on both gas and diesel, this is what the state needs to get their transportation on par with the other states around us. It'll bring the total gas tax to 27 cents. It's currently 17. But the fact that it's going to be, the cities are going to participate, just to give you an idea, what would Washington get at the end of 4 years? And they'd get this every year. Washington would get $219,000, and that's based on 2017 numbers. Gallons, basically. Washington would get $219,000 a year. The county of Franklin would get $1,202,000 every year.
And that can be used as match money also for federal?
As we understand it, it can be used for transportation needs. Now, I don't know what that'll be spelled out more, I guess, in the actual documents or whatever. But, again, it's big money. It's big money that nobody has planned on. Obviously, the 10% or 10 cents has to be approved by the people. So there will be a push to get that approved. There is an actual committee that has been assigned to work on this, which it needs to. They're going to call it Proposition D, as in David, and it's going to be called safermo.com, SAFERMO.com. It means more money for roads and bridges. Again, it'll be voted on on the November ballot. They did some homework sampling, trying to figure out what would be the best way to get this 10 cents. They surveyed people, 10 cents up front, probably wouldn't have gotten the amount of approval they needed. So when they broke it down, 2.5 cents over 4 years each year, they got enough where they know they could probably get this thing passed. There will be an organized effort to get this passed. And of course, all the different entities, Farm Bureau is in favor of this. They got all these people on board already that were somewhat negative sometimes. And it should be a big effort, and hopefully it'll pass.
Well, to pass it, I think they need to emphasize what the counties and cities will get.
Exactly, and they do. They actually give you the list based on the populations and on their formulas, and you can go to the website and you can look at any town. I mean, just to give you an idea, Union would get $160,000 a year, once again, fully implemented.
Yeah, that's 4-year full funding.
Full year for funding, right, the full 10%.
So, you start collecting the July of 19, you get a full year of collections by July of 20, and then
That's right.
what their distribution schedule is upon passage and collections, but sure it'll be similar to that of the sales tax, et cetera.
Well, at the county level, the distributions are going to be, there's some kind of a formula based on real estate valuations and whatever. I'm not sure how they do it, but evidently they figured that was the best way to do it. I don't understand it.
It's how it currently is. 'Cause
Is that what it is?
Fuel tax, 70% goes to MoDOT, 15%, like you said, goes to cities and counties.
Yes.
Just go on top of that and mirror that.
Yeah.
It mirrors it, okay. I didn't know what the formula had been, so.
So is this also called House Bill 1460?
That's
Is that what
correct.
it is? Okay, so I received an email yesterday or over the weekend, from the gentleman who was organizing that meeting up in Jeff City. And I guess a representative, Mike Moon, has now filed a lawsuit questioning the constitutionality of this. And apparently, and hopefully the vetting on the bill will allow it to stand up in court. There are a lot of people who have raised concerns, so I'm asking state leadership. So I suppose they're going to question the constitutionality of it and try to, I'm just mentioning that.
Yes.
So, and the last day to get it on the ballot for November 6th is August 28th. So they have a little fly in the ointment here.
Well, we were told at the meeting that this was they wanted to do something and get it in the legislative year. Okay, and the legislative year ended whenever, July or
May 20th.
May 20th or whatever it was. So what they did is they attached this bill to another bill that they knew would pass. Okay, this is where they kind of, whatever. And so the bill that they attached it to, let me just read it here, authorizes the Olympic Dream Freedom Act, which allows a state individual income tax deduction for the value of any prize or award won by a taxpayer in athletic competition in the Olympic, Paralympic, and Special Olympic Games. The bill creates the Emergency State Freight Bottleneck Fund, which is dedicated, subject to appropriation, only to road projects with with criteria for such projects specified in the bill subsection. The bill contains a referendum clause, and the provisions of the bill will become effective upon voter approval. So they attached it to this Olympic medals award thing because they ran out of time, is what it looks like to me, and what they, like I said, they said they needed to attach something to that they can go forward and not lose another whole year.
Not-for-profits.
It's just a not-for-profit, yes.
The voters, that would be a simple majority vote.
Right.
Yes, it would be.
So I do think also there's going to be some type of meeting on this side of the state, although
Yes.
I don't know if they're totally organized on this side of the state
They're still
yet.
putting it together.
They're still putting it together, but there will be a similar meeting on this side of the state.
Yeah, the only people I knew there were Ed Hassinger and Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, thanks
you know,
for doing it,
Just,
though,
just-
because.
just make a little note, we were, after the meeting, I was talking to Ed Hassinger about the thing we're working on across the river for the causeway, and Steve Miller happened to be standing next to me, and so he recognized that, you know, Washington was represented, and he said, yeah, he says, I enjoyed coming to your meeting. Remember when the commission came to our
Yeah.
meetings?
Yeah.
And I said, that was the one where the kids rolled in with the pennies, right? He says, oh, yeah. He says, I've got pictures of it. So if Stephen Miller doesn't know anything else, he knows
Knows
that.
we have
He knows the
pennies.
kids had the pennies.
Wheelbarrow of pennies.
So anyway, and those are the only two people that I actually knew at the meeting. So anyway, that's
Sounds
beside
like
the
you
point.
got good information.
Good information. It's coming. Hopefully, we can get the specifics and get behind it. It's something that Missouri needs, I think, to solve the transportation problems of funding. Okay. Did I take all your thunder out of you, Eric? You got anything?
Oh, just
Good.
quick update on, we got a couple bridges we're replacing on 94 west of Treelore, so looking like we're still on schedule toward the end of August, getting those opened up and that 94 corridor to 19 back open, so that's about all I had.
Very good. Yep. The north side is very important now. I mean, I think more so than ever for Washington's growth and whatever. So we look forward to your continued help. Airport, I guess that's where we're at.
Yes, the paving has been completed. It is not open. Phase 2 is not open yet to airplane traffic, but I do believe we have access to the pumps again, to the fuel pumps. I am meeting with our consultant tomorrow. There are approximately 10 to 12 panels that we had some issues with the concrete screed, that we did not get a smooth surface on those panels. So we're going to meet on site tomorrow to discuss remediation of those panels. But other than that, hopefully by the end of this month, being August, that everything will be taken care of. That project is behind schedule pretty substantially, so we're going to be working through that with our consultant and the contractor to get a resolution.
Very good.
I would also add, part of that, I did approve a very small change order to construct an ADA ramp into the actual building itself. That was not part of the original project, but I felt that it was important, and we were pouring concrete around to take care of it. So I do think we do have ADA access now into the building, which is important to all of us.
Very good. Surprised that the feds missed that.
Well, yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Anything for John? Hearing none. Team Track,
No report?
East-West Parkway,
No report?
no report. Public Transportation, I don't think she's here today. Anybody? Oh, yes, 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 I'm sorry. You bet. Hey, welcome back.
Hi, thanks. Good to be back. Thank you. So I just put together a little bit of information from Mo Rides. So far in 2018, we have had 50 calls from Franklin County area. 12 of them were elderly over 65, and 28 of them were disabled in some way, whether it be physical or mental. We were able to get rides for about half of those people, which is good, because a lot of times when we call back and try to find out if they do get rides, we don't get any answers and we don't get any callbacks. So, but we do continue to try and follow up to make sure that people are getting rides from the referrals that we give them. So, most of the appointments were for medical appointments. And then shopping was next, so.
Kelly, do you see an increase happening of people needing rides, or is it kind of flat, or what's your impression?
It seems to be increasing.
Increasing?
Yeah, yeah. And we are getting more like hits and visits to our website, and that just continues to increase as well. So it's not just the people that are calling us, you know, it's the people that are visiting the website as well.
Well, this is a good forum if you have ideas and things that you're trying to promote and make better what you're trying to do. Bring it to the meeting, and because it's a public meeting, this information can get out, you know, what you're doing and how you're doing it. So the needs that you have, let us know.
Okay.
Very good, and thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't,
Here,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I don't recall, is there a fee for this, or is it sliding scale, or?
No, the referral service is free. And we just give out referrals, say, you know, hopefully we try and give 2 to 3 transportation referrals to someone who calls, and then the transportation service itself does cost.
Yeah, they refer to agencies that provide transportation.
Right.
Then the user
Whether it's
communicates with
private
the
or
agency
public,
and is
you know.
paid accordingly.
Okay.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
I see Chad's back here in the audience. Chad, you want to give us a little report on what the Causeway?
One other thing on Mo Rides, if I can. Mo Rides, we did apply for additional funding to go statewide. So there'll be the plan is for a statewide coordinated transportation plan, and that will bring partners together from MoDOT, Department of Health, Department of Social Services, and then the metro areas as well. So
Good.
what's started as 4 to 5 counties, we'd look to have statewide coverage. As far as the build application, first of all, yes, it was submitted, $35 million, and it was for the Causeway, the Route 47 Causeway connector, to connect the bridge in Washington here across the Missouri River to Route 94. And that would be a raised causeway to connect them. So no flood events would hamper or hinder transportation. So that would be freight as well. It would also be pedestrian. And, you know, it's a large number, so I wanted to make one point that it's the first step. There'll be more work to be done. It's keeping it going, though, keeping momentum out there and keeping it alive as a project. It's also, you know, thank you for the support, but it's a project for all of us, and it'll take help from all of us. You know, it affects both sides of the river, St. Charles County as well, Warren County, Franklin County, and also those individuals that travel back and forth, and again with the freight corridor too, between 70 and 44. So As an update for that, you know, it was submitted. I don't anticipate to hear anything back. The deadline I think they gave us was December, when they would make announcements. So it's a starting point.
Very good. And your impression of the scoping, getting that monies allocated for the scoping, is that's great, correct? I mean, we're looking.
It keeps.
It's for, what's on the scoping list is for existing 47,
Okay.
not per
And that goes to Dutso, 47 to Dutso then, is basically the scoping?
Correct.
No way you can.
But I know that it is a project on our regional needs list.
Okay.
For the Boonslick region too, so.
Very good. So it's on the, it is a major project for Warren County in that area, in that Boonslick
Yes.
Regional. It's a
Yes.
priority, priority.
We'll see how the voting comes again next month, but yes, it was a high priority.
Very good, very good. Very good. Any questions for?
Yeah, did the new engineering, the engineering for the new bridge, did they take into account the connection of the bridge to a causeway?
They took into account separated pedestrian transportation already, and they took into account the height for the floods, but as far as an actual connector, I don't know if that was, I mean, it's gonna come off and it'll be there, and I don't know how much they put into a connector from the bridge itself.
It probably wouldn't be a major problem.
From the discussions we had with the design scope that's been out there for a couple of years, no, it shouldn't be a major issue.
Again, I'd be interested to see if that changed the flood status number, like 29 feet is flood at that point. Or was. Whether that has raised that to now 30 feet, 40, 35 feet, whatever. Probably it went up a couple of feet maybe, but since Augusta Bottom Road, I'm looking at Kevin, Augusta Bottom Road is the same.
The low point on 47 hasn't changed.
Right. That's the key.
The causeway would raise all that up.
All that up, right.
You're not required, you're required to maintain existing flood elevations. You won't change the water surface elevations. But the length of the causeway is gonna be able to handle whatever water is coming through there with no increase in water.
Yeah, you're required by Federal Emergency Management Agency to provide a no-rise certification, which means if you're working within the floodway of any identified floodplain, that you can't raise the water surface elevation post-construction. So you have to meet that.
Well, the reason I bring it
Flood
up is
elevation.
the impression that may be out there in the public that the new bridge is going to solve the flooding problem
That is not.
No.
is untrue. That basically did not change. And so there are people that think, well, we got a new bridge. We're not going to have floods anymore.
Help me understand, John, is it floodway is the area of the channel in the floodplain, is the propensity of flood?
Yeah, the flood, it's a difficult definition to wrap your head around, but the floodway is essentially the area of the 1% or the 100-year flood. 1% is probably a better way, but the 1% annual flood chance that you have the highest velocities of water. So you have the floodplain is outside the floodway, but that's not where water is flowing per se. It's just where water spreads out. Right. So you can theoretically, if your county or jurisdiction allows it, fill in the floodplain up to the floodway line, and that won't raise the water surface by more than 1 foot across the whole flooding source. So the Missouri River won't raise by more than 1 foot. So if you work within a floodway, you can't raise that at all. So there's multiple definitions there, but it's pretty confusing.
Very confusing,
Yeah.
Again, just remind people, the bridge is great. The bridge was falling down. The bridge was not adequate for continued use, but it did not change the flood problem. And we know that very much, very well. So, anyway, thank you very much.
I think one more thing to add to that, that's a good point, is it didn't change the flood problem, but it's a piece to move forward in changing the flood problem. Exactly. It didn't, it allows for expansion to solve the flood problem. So.
Sure. Very good. Thanks, Chad. Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you all very
Very
much.
good. Thank you. You bet, Chad. Thanks for all your efforts, because he's the guy that took this and ran with it and got this thing where it's at to get the application in. So, thank you. Any other business?
I just want to give an update real quick on Bluff Road. You guys probably getting sick of hearing about this. But the signal was up and operational at Vosbrink approximately 4 p.m. on Friday, last Friday. It is operational today. It will be operational through the entire duration of the project. We did add some additional signage. There's some static signs that just have the, just like a signal, just to kind of give some more visual. We've moved some changeable message signs and increased some cones, we call them trim line channelizers, up both sides, especially eastbound 100, just to try to get people to think, hey, something is ahead. The only thing I've noticed is there was some black marks on eastbound going down the hill at Vosbrink from a tractor trailer where the air brakes, but we've not received any reports of any incidents through the weekend. So we'll just be monitoring. If there's anything we can do better, make sure you forward that along to me, and we'll do what we can. Keep in mind, those signals do not have cameras. They're not pavement loops. They're all on timers. So the chance of you sitting at that stoplight with nobody else there is there. It may exist because it is on a timer. It is a temporary signal that will be removed at the end of construction.
And you gave lots of warnings forwarded back.
We're doing everything we can.
Because coming from the west, that's like a slingshot coming from that hill.
That's the biggest concern. And luckily, MoDOT has the high friction surface treatment going down the hill now to supposedly is supposed to help out with stopping vehicles. So I feel like we're giving plenty of notice. If there's anything we can do better, make sure you pass that along to my office. It's a 90-day project. Notice to proceed was given last Monday. So, we're 7 days into that. So we got 83, 84 days left. Obviously, everything pending weather. I'm not sure. Demo was supposed to occur today after rush hour. I haven't gotten an update this morning yet if that's actually happening. Yeah, but.
Any questions for John? Hearing none. Anything else? Kevin?
Yeah, I had a couple of meetings this past month in regards to the Katy Trail connector, basically connection there. I met with Chad one morning and also met with a couple of representatives from ODNR on that project. From discussions with Chad in Boonslick, I guess the feeling was that we'd kind of wait and see how the build grant came out, because they're also putting path connection, I believe, to the Katy Trail into their application there. So it's really kind of odd to have dueling proposals there. So I'm probably going to slow the whole process down as far as depending on waiting on the build application to see how that's going to move forward. MoDNR was extremely supportive of getting a better connection to the Katy Trail. They look at it as a big plus. I forgot this. I think it said they had like 400,000 people a year use the Katy Trail. I mean, it's a huge number of people. A couple of reasons. They're constantly getting calls on, because people take these long-term bike rides. You can't camp on the Katy Trail. There's no camping facilities. So they like to have these other communities available where riders can get in, spend the night, stuff of that nature. And they also really love the possibility of getting better Amtrak connection. People hop on Amtrak with their bikes, get off, then get to the trail, then ride back home. So it's two aspects there that they really like that Washington would be able to provide to increase ridership on the Katy Trail opportunity there. She did give me some application information for some recreational trail programs that you can get up to $250,000 grants for that type of work, matching grants, obviously, to do that. But I think it's probably best now, just from talking to Chad, like I said, that we kind of see how this build application goes. If the causeway would move forward, obviously, that's still even a more direct connection to the Katy Trail than even what we had proposed doing the other way through the airport property. So,
even if you put in just a gravel road, I mean, you've got easements, I understand, most of the way from 47 to the Katy.
Yeah, even talk to MoDNR, you wouldn't have a paved trail. You could put a rock surface just like the Katy Trail itself is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But that wouldn't necessarily interfere with Chad and the build grant, correct?
If you don't have a connection to the Katy Trail now, it helps him score a lot better. So if you get a connection to the Katy Trail, and he's saying, well, I'm just putting in a new connection to the Katy Trail, that's kind of doesn't help your case.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
So you say
It
the
makes sense.
causeway would include some sort of bicycle?
That's what he is.
On the right-of-way someplace, yes.
Okay, I got it.
So, all right, that's all I had.
Makes sense.
All right,
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you again for coming. Yeah, good stuff.
All good stuff.
This, thank you for letting me get on these